by engineers. It's not their core skill set. They're really engineers. They think about how to build a phenomenal product, but their idea isn't really, is the world willing to accept it, or how to get it out. Engineers that say, I think I know better than everybody else. And that's how the company dies.
If we talk about startups, what stages does a startup go through when it prepares for investments?
Sure, exactly. So first of all, you come up with an idea, right? You have to really test the idea to see if it's true, or the hypothesis. Is it true or not? And so the best indicator if it's true, if the founders of the company, like David Yang and I did with Yva, go out and talk to potential customers, said, are you interested in this? Would you buy it? You know, is this technology something you'd be interested in purchasing? And then the most important thing is, are they willing to take money out of their pocket and actually purchase what you have? So having them purchase, that validates your hypothesis. A lot of times startups never do that. Why? Because they're engineers that say, I think I know better than everybody else. And that's how the company dies. What you want to do is test it to make sure people are really interested. Because you could have a great idea, but there's really nobody to buy it. So in that situation with Yva, when we first started Yva, it was Findo, our first hypothesis was that we would go out and we would search the personal cloud. The problem is we could look at all these different data sources and search to help, but people don't remember their passwords and they don't admit it. They're like, oh, I think I know, but they never hook up. So we had to pivot. Part of life in doing a startup is being able to pivot. So if something doesn't work, it's not that you failed, it's that you need to try something else. It's like when you make the wrong turn and you make a U-turn. What you do with a startup is to be able to pivot and to be able to do that U-turn. So that's step number one. The other thing is, when you're scaling as a company, it's incredibly important when you're scaling, think about it. If you go to Silicon Valley is not the US. It is a port to the rest of the world. People have to think differently about it. It is truly a port. Half of the companies have CEOs that are immigrants from other countries. Half. So if you look at that, it's a place where you can get, there's trillions of dollars located there that come from all over the world to look for the coolest technology. And your valuations are generally a lot higher. So the reason Silicon Valley works, so if a company's if they're doing a startup, what they want to do is think about how do you go global. It's not just about any local market anywhere, where it's a US, Europe, Singapore, Russia, Belarus, it doesn't matter. It matters if you can scale to go global. So how do you do that? So part of it is having an open, you asked me earlier, what it takes to build a startup? Having an open mind. One of the things we came up with at Venture Studios, it's my new company, GSDVS, Get Stuff Done Venture Studios. Mark Zuckerberg, behind his desk at Facebook, has a sign that says, Get Stuff Done. That's about life. What it means is having an open mind enough that you're willing to change your company, bring in other resources to be able to help you, and understand you don't have all the answers, but open enough to find those answers. And that's really the next level of acceleration. I just wrote about it in Forbes magazine about a week ago.
By the way, about Forbes, you are a member of the Business Council. In Forbes, yes. What does this Business Council do?
So the Business Council has top executives, it's invitation only, from all over the world that are like-minded, that want to make a difference on the planet. My particular area of interest is artificial intelligence, and I write about a lot. Business development and startups. But it's a place where you find people just like you that can help. So you can write to them. It's a community, right, if you will. It's a very cool community.
And your role in this council is?
I'm an expert in artificial intelligence, so I write about AI. I start companies. I know how to take a company that has an idea in AI and turn it into a company that becomes a major player. That's what I do, and that's what I write about.
All right, going back to startups, you're basically saying you start a business, you produce some minimally good product, you want to sell it globally, but why would you need investments?
Well, because the thing is, you need to scale the company, and if you're not getting any revenue, who's going to pay for? You want to find people that support your ideas, right? And a lot of times, people starting companies don't have enough money to be able to scale, right? It costs millions of dollars to be able to scale. So, you also want to have your idea validated that people are willing to invest in you and your company, because at some point it's going to happen. You're going to need investment. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but it's going to happen at some time. You want to make sure that your company is ready to take those investments.
All right. There are some general things, but what about high-tech startups? What are the winning launch strategies in the technologies of the startups?
Winning? Sure. So launch strategies, it's a process. So I started GVA Launch Gurus. I've done 600 companies or so through GVA Launch Gurus. I personally was involved in 187, and also at Skolkovo Startup Academy, and also myself 30 years worth of experience doing companies. Lessons learned. A lot of what you do when you do a startup is very similar to a manufacturing process. By that, what I mean, you need a good CEO, world-renowned. It helps a lot because they can attract money. You need a great COO, Chief Operating Officer. You need to have people that understand how to get your message out. Storytelling. A lot of times in the companies, at about 70% of companies are founded by engineers. It's not their core skill set. They're really engineers. They think about how to build a phenomenal product. But their idea isn't really, is the world willing to accept it, or how to get it out to the world. And part of it is being able to get in front of thousands of people and convey the idea, like Steve Jobs. To enchant people, as Guy Kawasaki says. And so, building a company is building the right kind of team, going global with the company, understanding where your potential market is, and finding people that can help. Another thing, think about this. If you look at building a company, it's critically important to have world-renowned advisors involved. And let me tell you a scenario. If you're building a company, I talk about the rule of threes, like Steve Jobs. One is, you want to find somebody that has deep connections worldwide that can help you. So what kind of person would look like that? In Silicon Valley, the person would look like an MBA from Stanford University, undergraduate from Harvard, and a venture capitalist. And there are people like that, like Bill Reichert, who's Guy Kawasaki's business partner. And a lot of times I bring it on board of companies that I'm involved in. Number two, what comes up all the time? Privacy and security. Who do you find? The company in the world that you think about privacy and security is Apple. So the chief security officer at Apple, former chief security officer, Rick Orloff, is one of the top cybersecurity experts in the world. Because it's going to come up, I don't care what country you're from. If you're from London, you live in London, you live in Paris, you live in Silicon Valley, in San Jose, in San Francisco, doesn't matter, Moscow, Novosibirsk, it's going to come up. Why not hit the question head on and find somebody as an advisor can help you with that question? And the third in the rule of threes, find somebody that is really hot today, that has the name brand recognition, they've done something extraordinary, so people are attracted, understanding that you've got that, you're connected to Silicon Valley, right? That's the rule of threes, and it works every time.
As for working with a product and a team, what strategy would you advise to prepare a startup for investments? A high-tech startup.
Sure, yeah. So you have to, one thing, you got to make sure your legal strategy is in place. You got to make sure there's no black money, no gray money, that everything's white and transparent. So, and I'll give the example of Silicon Valley, right? Because this is the way to do it. So if you're taking a company to Silicon Valley, one of the things you do is you form a Delaware corporation. Door number one. Why? Because the body of corporate law is the best corporate law in the United States, and some say in the world, is Delaware. Then the situation, you form a company out in California. So it's a foreign entity, it's a Delaware corporation doing business in California. That's door number one. The other situation, you want to make sure that you have insurance is correct. So there's liability insurance that's required. You need to make sure you have health care insurance for your employees. So set up a PEO, a professional employment organization like a TriNet, to be able to help you with all the laws. All 50 states in the US have different laws around human resources. You have to comply. So what I do, instead of trying to do it in-house, I find people that can help. Right? Why reinvent the wheel when they're the experts? The other thing is, in terms of legal, you got to make sure you're legally compliant. So when you set up a startup, you got to do it right. You need to make sure you have your board of advisor agreements. You need to make sure that your corporation's correct, that everything makes sense. And you have a Russian company. So my philosophy is, we've got a Russian entity that's doing R&D work. And oh, by the way, 90% of the employees of a corporation can be located in Russia. The sales, marketing, business development, and management, many times, some of the management located in Silicon Valley. But if you look at it, we're creating jobs in Russia. Lots and lots of high tech. They're not leaving. Why? Because they get things like stock options, they get competitive salaries, and they got a pleasant Silicon Valley type working environment. So in terms of the company, what you want to do is create a good feeling. Share, right? So you do stock options, for instance. Stock options could be 14 to 20% of a company. You give those to employees. You want them to share in the wealth with you. It's not just about us. It's not just about you. It's not just about her. It's about being able to share the wealth. It's fair. So if you treat people fairly, they do incredible things for the company because they want to succeed, they want to change the world, and they want to take care of their families. And that's something we need to think about. It's got to be, as part of your strategy, think about treating people fairly. And that's my philosophy running companies. Treat people fairly. Then, so we go through all that. The other thing is connections. So you need to have the right kind of connections with a venture capitalist, connections with law firms. So, part of the strategy is find people that have that kind of a deep experience that can help.